What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show, and I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day again. I really hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I really just had a blast of a time recording that episode and, really discussing what led me to confiding in Christ and, getting baptized again and, trying to live that life that I feel like we all should try to live. It was a fun time recording that episode, and, thank you to all those who reached out to me. I really appreciate all the love and support, especially for me, my family, my friends, the channel. I'm very blessed in my life right now. A lot of great things going my way. Now, just a little bit of a heads up, guys. Posting might become, a little bit more challenging for me because I am starting a new job actually, this is coming out on Tuesday, so today, I actually started a new job today, so just bear with me while I figure out my schedule for the next couple weeks. So if things are posted late, if things aren't posted on time, don't worry. It's just a little rough patch in life at this moment in time, just trying to figure out my schedule moving forward and figure out the best days I can record and, produce content for all of you guys, because I do take pride in myself on being able to stay consistent and stay current with everything that I post for this channel. And, just bear with me, guys, as, I started work this morning, but, soon enough I'll have a good set schedule and I'll be able to post content more efficiently and, ready and on time. I'll have everything figured out in the near future. Also, Bucked Up Ambassador, so head on over to buckedup.com, use promo code SHOW32, get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout orders you may have at buckedup.com. So last week, I talked about my baptism and a little bit of motivational stuff to go along with that. So now, like I mentioned before, I am kind of transitioning into a sports talk show, and that doesn't mean that I'm really putting mental health on the back burner. I talked about this briefly, but it's the fact of the matter is there's only so much you really want to, hold on to in the past. For my sake, I've really stopped kind of talking about my past. I look back to it for reference for my future, but honestly, it's very tough to just keep living back in those memories. So while, yes, I have dedicated a lot of content on this channel to mental health and, helping people become a better version of themselves, and also confiding in Christ, which I will always preach and I will always mention because, that's the way, the truth, and the life, John 14:6. I love doing that, but there's only so much I feel like all of us collectively should relive. Like I said, you have to leave the past in the past and look towards the future. You can't live in the rearview mirror. You have to look through the front windshield. So when it comes to constantly reminding myself of everything that I went through over the past 5 years, it just, it really doesn't bode well for me. It really puts me in kind of a mood and, gets my thoughts rolling a lot. I still talk about how I'm an overthinker when it comes to all that sort of stuff. But so I'm kind of transitioning away from that just because, it's time to move on. Got to move on. No matter what, the past is in the past for a reason. Let it stay back there. Only gaze back in the rearview mirror, but you got to live life through the front windshield. So as I transition into more of a sports talk show, don't fear when I say I will still bring up motivational content. I will still post content like that, just not as often anymore. I will always give reference and praise to Christ, because he's the one true King and the Lord and Savior of my life, of all of our lives. But when it comes to the mental health stuff that I've dealt with over the past 5 years, I'm trying to leave that in the past for good, because a lot of it I just don't want to be reminded of. So as I transition into this, I ask that you, still keep that love and support strong, because we're almost at 150 subscribers. So we've had our best year. It's only five months into the new year, and we've already done, insurmountable growth since last year. So I really appreciate all the love and support, and I ask that you just be patient with me and still show all the love and support for the channel as I make this transition. God is always with you guys, and God is always with us in general. He guides our life. Don't ever forget that. So, what are we going to get into today? Well, excuse me. Had a couple of issues today. I hate when this happens. It always seems to happen. I always get like a sore throat. It always happens before I start recording, which, angers me a lot. Trying to keep my temper under control, but that's hard for me sometimes. But I'm getting better, a lot better. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk a little bit of the NBA, college football, and the NFL, slightly. But we're going to start in the NBA. Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers are locked in a battle in the Eastern Conference Finals, even though it's not really a fight anymore. Obviously, I am recording this on Sunday, so Boston has a 3-0 lead. Now, this could change by Monday night. Obviously, last night, I'm sure Boston probably closed the series, but as of right, I'm talking about this currently because I have a bunch of issues when it comes to the Boston Celtics. Not necessarily how good of a team they are, but it's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is, I am waiting for something more from Boston. Boston has been notorious for choking in the playoffs and choking since 2008 when they won their last NBA Finals championship with Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Rajon Rondo and Ray Allen. All those guys. It's been a long, long time since Boston has won a championship for the Celtics. But looking back on this, obviously Boston is in the Eastern Conference Finals and for all intents and purposes in the finals. Again. Well, Boston has had pretty much the easiest path I have ever seen in my life up to this point watching the NBA. This is the easiest path for the Eastern Conference representative to make the NBA Finals. Pretty much every star player that you can think of in the East was injured or has gotten injured in the playoffs this year. I have a list of everybody who was injured in the playoffs. And this is just in the East. Which is, the weaker conference by a country mile. But everybody who got injured in the playoffs in the East this year: Jimmy Butler, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson. Obviously, he played a little bit here and there, but he got injured. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid, and Boston's own Kristaps Porzingis. Boston has had the easiest path imaginable to the Eastern Conference Finals and, for all intents and purposes, to the NBA Finals this year. So Boston won 4-1 against the Heat. Boston 4-1 to the Cavs, and Boston leads the Pacers right now 3-0, but for all intents and purposes could have been a sweep. So Boston has lost 2 games up to this point in the entire playoffs. Well, in reality, Jimmy Butler didn't play. To my knowledge, Jimmy Butler didn't play against Boston. Donovan Mitchell was hobbled here and there against Boston, and Halliburton got hurt against Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals. Boston. There's no easy way to say it other than Boston has been notorious for choking in the playoffs, and I would expect Boston to make the NBA Finals this year. I fully expected it because I thought they were the best team in the East easily, but after seeing all those injuries, after seeing the path that Boston took to the finals this year, this has to be the year that Boston finally gets it done. Boston has been waiting since 2008 to finally bring back a championship to Boston for the Celtics and the Celtics fan base. So I'm going to put up a little prompt for you. So Boston in the playoffs since the 2008 title run. They have 2 finals appearances and 2 finals losses. They have 5 conference finals losses. They have 3 conference semifinals losses. They have 4 first-round exits, and 1 year they missed the playoffs. And they've been to the conference finals 6 out of the last 8 seasons, including this year. Choke after choke after choke after choke. And they've had good teams. But the biggest issue I would say that plagued Boston is the fact that they always had to go up against LeBron James. And when LeBron James played in the East, when LeBron James played for the Cavs, there's no easy way to say it. LeBron made everybody his bitch. LeBron ran the East. Sorry for cursing, but LeBron ran the East. That's why they called the Toronto Raptors the LeBronto Raptors, because LeBron owned them. LeBron owned the East every single year he ever played for the Cavs. Always owned them. So, that's a legitimate reason for Boston, to struggle in the playoffs, at least towards, at least the years after 2010. But even when LeBron went to the Heat, he still owned Boston. Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo, that team that made the finals in 2010 but lost to the Kobe Bryant-led Lakers. But ever since then, they have been to the finals only one time. They could never overcome LeBron in Cleveland. They barely did. They could never overcome LeBron when he played for the Heat. And once LeBron went to the West, this was the perfect opportunity for Boston to finally jump ahead in the entire Eastern Conference. LeBron went to the tougher West. The West was a gauntlet because you still had the Golden State Warriors dynasty. You had the Rockets and James Harden and Chris Paul for a long time. You had the Oklahoma City Thunder, even before Kevin Durant went to the Golden State Warriors and made that super team. It's still a gauntlet, and it was still a gauntlet in the West. So this would have been the perfect opportunity for Boston to finally overcome all the past issues that they had against the Heat and finally make a run for another championship. They only made it to the championship once since 2010, and they lost to the Golden State Warriors. Now, I think, though, obviously they went up against Steph Curry and Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson. The Splash Brothers and Steve Kerr, that Golden State Warriors team, they had an easy path to the finals too, but, tip of the cap for them. A lot of people thought Boston was their toughest challenge, and they kind of made quick work of Boston in that finals. So Boston has made only 2 finals since 2008, probably a third by now, but we're waiting for more. The toughest opponent that Boston's going to face in the playoffs is either the Timberwolves or the Mavericks. It's either Anthony Edwards and Kat and Rudy Gobert, or it's going to be Luka and Kyrie. That is easily the toughest challenge that Boston's going to have in these playoffs, and it comes at the worst possible time, the NBA Finals, where you have to win it all. That's it. There's no more after that. I don't think they've been challenged enough to even compete with the Timberwolves or the Mavericks. And I really think the Mavericks are going to win it all. I do. I jinxed them because I still love Kyrie and I love Luka, but I do think Boston's easy path to the finals this year, I don't think they can win the finals. I just don't. I think they are going to choke again and not bring a title home to Boston whatsoever. So this is a big series for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. These guys have to prove they can finally win something together rather than playoff exit after playoff exit after playoff exit. When's the title coming back to Boston? We all thought these guys were going to bring one back real soon. So far, it hasn't happened. So, I personally think, Boston, they're a good team. But are they a great team? I don't necessarily believe that. Because I don't think they can compete with the Mavericks or the Timberwolves. I think whoever represents the Western Conference in the finals is going to win the finals. Because Boston just has not been tested this entire postseason. It doesn't matter who they played, because all the star players basically got hurt in this postseason in the East. So for all the Western Conference teams, it was a gauntlet getting to the finals. And I personally think it's going to be the Mavericks But either way, if it's Luka and Kyrie and the Mavericks, or Anthony Edwards, Cat, and Rudy Gobert for the Timberwolves, I think either of those teams are going to be crowned NBA champions. I don't see Boston. Now, I don't think it'll be a sweep. I don't think the West will sweep Boston whatsoever, but I do think that it'll be a tough-fought series, but whoever makes it from the West, whether that be the Mavericks or the Timberwolves, they're going to win the NBA Finals. Because Boston has yet to prove that they can get over the hump, and this easy road that they had to the conference finals and to the finals, I don't think Boston's tested enough, and I don't think Boston can overcome anything remotely close to the talent that Luka and Kyrie present, or Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert present. That was a big rant for NBA. Got a couple things wrong because I know LeBron was still on Cleveland when Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. You know, poor Kevin Durant. You know, he really changed his entire career outlook ever since he left Golden State. Even since he left OKC, it's never been the same for Kevin Durant. And I think it's crazy. I mean, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago before that. I thought he was the reason Frank Vogel was ousted in Phoenix, but it is what it is. So we're going to transition into college football now. So college football. Obviously, EA College Football 25 comes out July 19th, and I'm calling off work that day. Nobody's going to beat me online at all. In online play, people have had my number in Madden for years now. I don't like Madden whatsoever, but when it comes to this new college football game, the first college football game released in 11 years, oh, you bet your rear that I'm going to be undefeated online. I open anybody to challenge me on the new NCAA game coming out in July. But that's not what we're going to talk about today when it comes to college football. When it comes to college football, I'm going to do sort of a little bit of an outlook. So obviously we usher in a new era with the 12-team playoff. You have the 4 highest-ranked conference champions in the Power 4 conferences. Obviously the Big Ten, the Pac-12 is dismantled. But you have the 4 conference championship winners, and based off how they're ranked in the playoff system, you know, they'll all get buys. And then the rest of the 8 teams, you know, compete for those spots against those teams, and then, you know, present the tournament, you know, the tournament format, and then, you know, move on to the college football national championship. Well, there's one team that I think has the easiest path to make the college football playoff ever. This might be based off schedule, who they play, where they play, and just based off the talent that went to the NFL this past year. The talent that left college football this past year to the NFL this year is insurmountable. So we're going to be talking about the Ohio State Buckeyes, but not necessarily for the reason of the team's sake. We're going to talk about Ryan Day, head coach Ryan Day. Now, he's been there since 2019 when he took over for Urban Meyer. So, I know plenty of Buckeye fans who don't like Ryan Day. I know plenty of Buckeye fans who think Ryan Day should be fired or should have been fired after the Fiesta Bowl against Missouri. Or was it the Sugar Bowl against Missouri? Either way, they lost to Missouri this past year in their bowl game. But that's not the point. The point is, Ryan Day, I think he's personally a good coach, but there's only one thing that's really holding him back from, you know, Buckeye immortality. Well, really, 2 things as a head coach. Here's another prompt for you guys. So in Ryan Day's career, he has a 56-8 record. He's 39-3 in the Big Ten. He's 2-4 in bowl games. He's the 2019 Big Ten Coach of the Year. He's a 2-time Big Ten champion. But the one thing that's holding him back, he's 1-3 against Michigan. That can't happen if you're a Buckeye. That can't happen if you are an Ohio State coach. Whether it's Michigan or whether it's Ohio State, those coaches live and die by their records and what they can do against the rivalry. the game. So Ryan Day, obviously, his record speaks for itself. His Big Ten record certainly speaks for itself. The two-time Big Ten champion and the 2019 Big Ten Coach of the Year, those are all great. Those are all great aspects of his career. 2-4 in bowl games, I get it. That isn't necessarily great, but think about the competition that, Ohio State's teams have went up against when it comes to, because they always made the college football playoff, but they either run into Trevor Lawrence, who widely considered one of the greatest college football quarterbacks of all time, or they play Alabama, which, a Nick Saban-led Alabama team, that's basically a death sentence for your team to go up against. So unless you are built like a Joe Burrow led LSU team, something like that. So I'm not really too worried about Ohio State's, bowl record, but I am worried about Ryan Day when it comes to his coaching career and his coaching future at Ohio State. If he loses to Michigan this year on November 30th at home, I don't think Ryan Day will have a job within 5 hours after that game ends. I seriously think that this is Ryan Day's last shot. If he loses to Michigan this year, forget it. He's not finishing the season. He won't be here next year. So I said that a lot during the college football season last year, that if Ryan Day does not beat Michigan this year, he'll be out of the job within the hour after that game ends on Saturday, November 30th. But let's say he does beat Michigan, which, for all intents and purposes, he can easily. Michigan, like one of those teams I mentioned that completely lost so much talent to the NFL. So, along with a lot of other teams on their schedule right now, Ohio State can definitely make a run for the college football playoff and possibly get probably one of the top 2 seeds in the entire playoff rankings. So if you take a look at, everything going on with Ohio State, a lot of people say that he just needs to beat Michigan. I disagree, because I definitely think this could possibly be Ryan Day's last year in general at Ohio State. Like I said, he loses to Michigan, it's a done deal. He's fired within the hour. Pack your shit, get out of here. So if he loses to Michigan, he's done. But, he can make the Big Ten. Let's say he makes the Big Ten championship again and wins it. So the 3-time Big Ten champion. But if he does not make a national championship, if he does not produce more results, because he's had talented teams with Justin Fields and with CJ Stroud, the sheer firepower on offense and their great defense that they've had over the past couple years, I honestly am shocked that Ohio State does not have, any national championship under Ryan Day's belt. So I think Ryan Day, at minimum, to keep his job for the next year, I think he has to make the national championship. I don't think there's any other circumstance that Ryan Day remains an Ohio State Buckeye head coach. I don't see any other scenario where Ohio State would keep him. And it's nothing against Ryan Day himself. He's proven he's a good coach. But that record against Michigan, that record against the team up north, really holds him back. If he was undefeated against Michigan, I don't think we're having this discussion. Because one, he definitely, he wouldn't have lost to Jim Harbaugh at all. And number two, he most likely would have won a national championship in those years that Michigan, beat them and outplayed them for the Big Ten championship game. But if Ryan Day loses to Michigan this year, especially after all the talent that they lost, and especially Jim Harbaugh leaving to coach the NFL and coach the Chargers, like I said, Ryan Day will be out within the hour after that game concludes. And if not, let's say he wins, he needs to make the national championship this year, or I think he can kiss his job goodbye. But it does not help with the quarterback situation that he has right now. So he has Will Howard, transfer from Kansas State. And Will Howard, while he's a good quarterback, he's Nothing spectacular like a Caleb Williams or anything like that. But last year, Ohio State's quarterback Kyle McCord, I think you got Kyle McCord 2.0. If you're a Buckeye fan, I am praying that Aaron Noland, their freshman quarterback recruit, I am praying that he steps up and is the starting quarterback by week 3 or week 2 for the Buckeyes, because I don't see any scenario where Will Howard will lead Ohio State to a national championship. I think Will Howard, if he's the starting quarterback by the end of the year, I think Ohio State would probably have maybe 2 or 3 losses on their belt. I don't think Will Howard's that great. Like I said, I think he's a Kyle McCord 2.0. And Ohio State won games last year in spite of Kyle McCord. There's a reason Kyle McCord transferred to Syracuse. Now, I'm not claiming to be an expert on quarterback play, but there's a reason, why he transferred out. I have said before that Ohio State has been so beyond spoiled when it comes to quarterback talent over the past couple years in college, over the past 2 decades almost in college football. Their quarterback talent over the years rivals anybody's that was ever to produce. Ohio State went from Troy Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. You went to Terrell Pryor. Then you went to Braxton Miller. Then you went to J.T. Barrett, Cardell Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, C.J. Stroud, and then you went to Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord's none of those guys. I talked about it. That was my most viewed reel on Instagram. It's still up there. But that's the reality of it. Ohio State has been spoiled with quarterback play over the past 15 to 20 years. So now you're not used to having these lower totem pole level quarterbacks. When I say lower totem pole level quarterbacks, they're still good quarterbacks because they're playing D1 college football. But they're nothing compared to what Ohio State's talent was like at quarterback the past 15 years. Aaron Noland, I think, is their best option going forward. And I think, so like I said earlier, Ohio State has the easiest road to the college football playoff I think I have ever seen in my entire life. Since the college football playoff's inception, this might be the easiest schedule I have ever seen for a team to make the college football playoff. Week 1, you're playing the Akron Zips. Week 2, Western Michigan Broncos. You're off week 3. Week 4, Marshall. Then at Michigan State, Iowa, at Oregon, bye week. Nebraska, at Penn State, Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, and then Michigan. Your last 4 games are at home. Your last 4. You have, it looks like 1, 2. You guys have 3 away games all year long. You guys have 3 away games and 2 bye weeks. Like, this is beyond easy for Ohio State to make the college football playoff. There's no excuses whatsoever. Now that I really look at their schedule, your toughest game is going to be Penn State. Oregon isn't going to be that much. I mean, Oregon will still be good, but they're not going to be as good as last year when they had Bo Nix. Penn State, it's at Penn State. If they have a whiteout, then you might be in trouble because Ohio State just does not know how to beat Penn State when they're in a whiteout. So either way, every other team on that schedule is beatable by 20. Don't tell me Nebraska is that good. Do not tell me Iowa will score more than 10 points a game. I swear, Iowa has the worst offense I've ever seen in my entire life. And Ohio State, they also got another freshman recruit, Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver, and people are already comparing him to Marvin Harrison Jr. So realistically, and especially some notable transfers you guys have gotten, Caleb Downs, safety from Alabama. You got Julian Sayin, quarterback from Alabama. And then you also got Keenan Nelson, safety from South Carolina. Those are just some of the notable transfers that Ohio State got. There's a lot more where that came from. But when it comes to the talent level on Ohio State this year, this is one of their most talented teams in years. Maybe not most talented at quarterback position, but surrounding cast, you still have Emeka Egbuka, who comes back. Travion Henderson, he's coming back. A good offensive line. You have a good defense, especially now adding Caleb Downs and Keenan Nelson, two of the most sought-after safeties in the country. This is the most talent Ohio State has had around one of their starting quarterbacks in, it seems like, years. So, I don't think there's any more excuses for head coach Ryan Day. I think it's time to put up or shut up. You have to beat Michigan, and you have to make the college football playoff national championship game in order to keep your job. I don't see any scenario. One, if he loses to Michigan, he's done. He's not even going to get a chance to finish the year out. Because every other game on this schedule, I can easily say Ohio State should go undefeated this year. They should. Maybe one loss, and that would be to Penn State in a whiteout game at Penn State. But other than that, there's no reason Ohio State can't make the national championship this year. As much as I dog and love to hate on the Buckeyes, I'll acknowledge how great they are and how great they've been over the past 20 years of college football. But I think this is Ryan Day's last chance. It's time to put up or shut up, and I think Ryan Day, I don't necessarily know if he'll get it done. I don't think he will, especially because of just the quarterback situation. You have Aaron Noland, freshman, obviously no experience, and you have Will Howard, experience in college football, but a Kyle McCord. I think Aaron Noland has a higher ceiling and compared to Will Howard. So we're going to see how this quarterback situation turns out. Will Howard, I don't think he's going to be the answer. I think he's Kyle McCord 2.0, and I think you guys are in for a long season if Will Howard is your starting quarterback for the entire year. All right, we're going to move on to another college football team. One that hasn't really seen much success since 2001 when they assembled the greatest college football team of all time. And that's the University of Miami. So the University of Miami, it has been a long, long time. It's been a long time coming waiting for a team with as much talent as they have currently on their roster. Miami was one kneel down last year away from being 8-4. Thank you all to who have completely reminded me that all Miami had to do was take a knee against Georgia Tech and we would have won 8 games. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I still get headaches thinking about that. But when it comes to everything that's been going on with the University of Miami, one, it's very hard to get people to go to home games because if you think about it, you're in the Sunshine State. You are in South Beach. You are in Miami. You go there to enjoy the beaches, the nightlife. You're not worried about, a college football team that hasn't been, worth a damn over the past 20 years. You have no reason to go to them home games unless you're a diehard fan or you go to school there. But it does not help that they do not have a stadium on campus. They have to drive. The student body has to drive damn near an hour to, Hard Rock Stadium because they tore down the old Orange Bowl years and years and years ago. Plus, if it's a night game or even a noon game, you still have to wait in traffic for so long just to get to a Miami home game. I made that drive from my University of Miami campus to Hard Rock Stadium. I could see why people would not want to just drive there. I think it's important that Miami, things go the right way and they finally get a stadium back on their campus, near campus. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. It might. Who knows? I don't know. But here's another prompt for you guys. When it comes to the University of Miami, since the 2001 title team, they have no national championships. They have only 3 10-plus win seasons. They are 4-12 in bowl games, and they've had 5 different head coaches plus 3 interim head coaches in that entire time since the 2001 team. That's a definition of pathetic, especially after Miami was the team to beat throughout the mid and late 80s and early 90s and the early 2000s Miami was on top of the world. They were the team to beat in college football. College football was always better when Miami's good, USC is good, and Texas is good. Miami, this is the most talent that they have had on this roster in such a long time. And the biggest thing is the transfer portal for us. The biggest additions for us have come from the transfer portal. And it happened at the most important position. Mario Cristobal getting quarterback Cam Ward from Washington State, instead of committing to the NFL, bring him back to the University of Miami. Get him to commit to us, to Miami. And he succeeded. I may have my issues with Mario Cristobal and his coaching philosophy and some of his play calling that has happened over the past 2 years with him. But when it comes to talent acquisition, when it comes to building a roster, when it comes to building a coaching staff, when it comes to building a program, I will say he knows what he's talking about. I mean, he did have Justin Herbert at Oregon. It took him a couple years to get that team up and going, but he did turn it around. He did win the Rose Bowl. He did win the Pac-12. When it was a good Pac-12, conference at that time, it was okay. Nothing too special like last year. Last year was the best Pac-12 conference there's ever been. But Mario Cristobal, as much as I have my issues with some of his play calling and everything like that, he still knows how to build a roster. He still knows how to build a culture. He still knows how to build a staff. I do think Cristobal is the right guy. I still do. Some of the notable transfers that Miami has gotten this year, obviously quarterback Cam Ward, who, he has Heisman aspirations. This is the best quarterback talent Miami has had in a long time, and that includes De'Aaron King. De'Aaron King, when he transferred to Miami years ago, he was good. He was definitely better than what we had. Cam Ward is another level above De'Aaron King. And I love De'Aaron King. I think he was fantastic for the University of Miami in that short time that he was there, especially during COVID, that COVID team. But when it comes to the sheer talent and potential of quarterback play, this is probably the best quarterback situation Miami has had since 2003 when Brock Berlin was quarterback for Miami. Another transfer, go figure. But when it comes to the play at the University of Miami quarterback position, they are basically the opposite of what Ohio State has been. Ohio State has been superstar after superstar after superstar. Miami, bust, 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 bust. A lot of them had a lot of talent and promise. Notable ones, Brad Kaya. That was the most successful quarterback. I say successful. That was the most successful quarterback in recent memory. No, I can't even say that. It was the quarterback after him, Malik Rozier. Because he is the reason Miami had their first 10-win season since 2003, back in 2017. But when it comes to talent, the most talented quarterback to come through Miami in recent memory was Brad Kaya. He was the one who had the best NFL aspirations and looked like an NFL quarterback, but even that didn't really pan out too much. Cam Ward to Miami is the best quarterback situation since 2001 when Miami had Ken Dorsey lead them to a national championship. Do I think Miami is going to win a national championship this year? I don't know. And I'll be honest. There's a lot of talent on this team. And the ACC lost a lot of talent this year. Notable transfers other than Cam Ward, quarterback. You have Damian Martinez, a 1,000-yard rusher and one of the best running backs in college football last year from Oregon State. He's now on the team. You have Sam Brown, wide receiver from Houston, who's now at Miami. And then you have the former edge rusher at Tennessee, Tyler Barron, who's an absolute animal, coming to Miami. And this is just some of the most notable transfers, not including a lot, which Miami has done serious damage in the portal this year. This team is set up for success. This team is set up to make big-time moves this year. If we didn't get Cam Ward, I would have said Miami has no shot to make the playoff. I would have said Miami probably would have went 7-5, 8-4 again like they did last year. But the addition of a quarterback like Cam Ward alone puts this roster over the top. You already have a stout defense. You have Ruben Bain, one of the best edge rushers in college football, who, as a freshman last year, returning. You have pretty much the best linebacker in the ACC returning, Francis Malinois. You have a young, stout offensive line with young freshman running back from last year, Mark Fletcher, coming back for his sophomore year. You have Xavier Restrepo. You have Jacoby George. Now you got Sam Brown coming in. You have Elijah Arroyo at tight end position, who's making tremendous strides to become the next best tight end in University of Miami history. You have a stout defense. You have a great secondary. You have a great, special teams, everything. Miami, they're set to try and make a run this year. So if you look at their schedule this year, they open up, and I will be at this game, they open up with the Florida Gators in Gainesville at 3:30 on ABC. So right off the rip, we're going to see how much this team has improved. We're going to see what this team is made of. Because after that, Florida A&M, Ball State, at USF, Virginia Tech, and then at Cal. So first month and a half of this, first month and a half of the season, first 6 games, it's doable. Then you have a bye week. And then this is when it really gets tougher. You got to go to Louisville. Then you play Florida State. Duke, not bad. Georgia Tech, at Georgia Tech. The team you should have took a knee against last year. I think Miami will be out for blood that game. Then you have a bye week. Then you play Wake Forest. And then you're at Syracuse with Kyle McCord. Go figure. And then the ACC championship is December 7th. There is no reason Miami cannot make the ACC championship this year. You got teams like Clemson, who are on the downturn. Florida State lost all their talent to the NFL draft. Louisville, they're okay. They only scored 6 points in the ACC title game last year against Florida State. Virginia Tech, no. The ACC is so wide open for Miami to pounce and take advantage of. I can definitely see them making the college football playoff this year. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship, but to make the 12-team playoff, I can definitely see them doing this. As much as Miami gives us some stinkers every now and then, I don't see how they can't really flow through this entire season unscathed. And Florida State obviously is going to be their toughest test. Florida and Florida State, obviously those will be their toughest tests, and it won't be even close. That's just, the 2 best teams in Florida. Well, all 3 of the best teams in Florida going at it, see who the champion of Florida is going to be this year. But the toughest games on Miami's schedule is week 1 against against the Florida Gators in Gainesville, and then Saturday, October 26th, home against Florida State, where they almost won last year in Tallahassee with a backup quarterback who found out he was going to play just before the game basically started. The future is very bright for the University of Miami this year. With those additions from the transfer portal, with the sheer schedule, with the amount of talent that has been acquired to build this team, I don't see any reason that the University of Miami cannot finally compete for a national championship and not tease it like back in 2017. So many things went Miami's way that year. I didn't necessarily think it was a great quarterback situation. It was a lot of talent around that team. That was probably the best defensive Miami team I've seen personally in my whole life, because I didn't watch the 01 team when I was 1 year old. But there's no reason that Miami cannot compete for the national championship this year, or at least compete for one of the top 12 playoff spots. So those 2 college football teams right now, I talked about Ohio State and Miami. I think both of them will make the college football playoff. Me personally, I think Ohio State will reclaim the Big Ten from Michigan. And I do think Miami gets over the hump and finally wins the ACC. Maybe neither of them win the national championship. Maybe they even get bounced first round in the playoff. But I definitely think the talent is there, the coaching is there, and both have a lot to play for this year. Ryan Day is basically coaching for his life, and so is Mario Cristobal. I think those two head coaches are fighting for their jobs this year. So I think it gives them every incentive to, go out and perform. I think Ohio State and Miami both make the college football playoff this year. All right, we're going to finish up now. For the NFL, Jared Goff just received recently, about 2 weeks ago, a new 4-year, $212 million extension. So we're going to play a little game real quick to finish off the show. I'm going to take Jared Goff, or I'm going to take one of the other 9 top paid quarterbacks in the league. So obviously, Jared Goff, low ceiling, whatever you want to say. I still think Jared Goff is the most underappreciated quarterback in the NFL right now. He's a fantastic quarterback. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 NFC championship games, and I think he leads the Detroit Lions to a Super Bowl eventually, real soon in the future. So comparative to the other top 9 paid quarterbacks in the league, I'll go from 10 to 1. Josh Allen. Would I take Jared Goff or Josh Allen? Josh Allen just specifically because of his raw athleticism and arm talent. Yeah, he makes more mistakes than Jared Goff, but I'll still take Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills over Jared Goff. Would I take Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins? Not even close. I would take Jared Goff. No injury history like Kirk Cousins. Jared Goff does not shrink in big games like Kirk Cousins. And the overall talent level, I definitely think Jared Goff is just a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins. Would I take Jared Goff or Patrick Mahomes? No contest. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, and it's not even close. Would I take Jared Goff or Deshaun Watson? I would take Jared Goff. There is no reason Deshaun Watson should be one of the top 10 paid quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Like I said, Houston absolutely fleeced Cleveland. Cleveland, of course, making a bad quarterback decision. It is what it is. But Deshaun Watson, ever since he left Houston, especially being the type of person he is, he don't deserve any of this kind of money. And he's not even remotely close to the same stratosphere Jared Goff is as a quarterback. Talent-wise, maybe. But overall, as a quarterback, there is no. Deshaun Watson doesn't even belong on this list. Kyler Murray or Jared Goff? I would take Jared Goff. When's Kyler Murray available? Injury history, loves to mail it in and just do his own thing. I'll take Jared Goff over Kyler Murray any day. Jalen Hurts or Jared Goff? Well, if we're being honest, Jared Goff has been the most consistent quarterback in the league. And we saw what happened with Jalen Hurts as soon as Shane Steichen left. As soon as Shane Steichen left the Eagles, Jalen Hurts dipped. That entire offense for the Eagles dipped. Now, I want one more year of Jalen Hurts producing at a high level before I'm willing to make that switch. But right now, I'll take Jared Goff over Jalen Hurts. Hot take, I know. Lamar Jackson or Jared Goff? Give me Jared Goff. Not for what you think, but it's because I'm taking everything into accountability. And I'm kidding, guys. I would take Lamar Jackson 100%. Even though the injury history does bother me a little bit for Lamar, moving forward, I definitely would take Lamar Jackson because I think his ceiling is just insurmountably higher than Jared Goff. But Lamar Jackson, athletic ability, arm strength, arm talent, a lot of it, he's just a game changer. Jared Goff, I don't think he's in a class like Lamar, but Jared Goff, If Lamar got hurt again, I would reconsider and I would take Jared Goff. But I'm talking about longevity. So I could end up switching off Lamar Jackson to Jared Goff, but, for right now, I'd take Lamar over the next 5 years. Jared Goff or Justin Herbert? I would take Jared Goff. Justin Herbert does not win enough. He's good. Don't get me wrong. He is not the reason that the Chargers have been awful. That was all Brandon Staley. And I think with Harbaugh in, he's going to get every ounce of talent out of Justin Herbert. But I do think Justin Herbert's a great quarterback. I think he's one of the top 10 in the league. But over the next 5 years, I will take consistent Jared Goff over inconsistent Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's been hit and miss a lot. He needs to win more. He only has one playoff appearance in his career, and he blew it to Trevor Lawrence, who isn't even a great quarterback right now, in my opinion. So now, the highest paid quarterback in the league. Would I take Jared Goff or would I take Joe Burrow? I personally, as much as I hate to say it, even though I love Joe Burrow, his injury history, the Bengals' cheapness when it comes to offensive line, their terrible drafting when it comes to offensive line, their offensive line is still terrible. Joe Burrow behind the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is an accident waiting to happen. Kind of like the Cowboys. But I would personally take Jared Goff over the next 5 years. I'm talking about over the next 5 years. You know what? I'm going to flip-flop. I'll take Jared Goff over Lamar Jackson for the next 5 years. And I will take Justin Herbert over Jared Goff for 5 years. But right now, I will take Jared Goff over Joe Burrow for the next 5 years. Injury history matters. It all has to matter. Everything collective about the quarterback position has to matter. If you are asking me to take one quarterback or another for an arbitrary amount of time, more than 5 years down the road, who is more likely to be healthy, consistent, and still, a solid quarterback? I think it would be Jared Goff because I think Joe Burrow poses more of an injury risk. That's just the reality of it. I love how Dak Prescott is not on this list. If Jerry Jones knows what he's doing, do not give Dak Prescott that money. Do not handicap yourself in your franchise by paying Dak Prescott Joe Burrow money. Now, I think every quarterback on this list, while I have struggled believing that anybody's worth $55 million a year, when it comes to the NFL standard of paying players, I'm okay with this top 10 of who the most paid quarterbacks are, not Deshaun Watson or Kirk Cousins. I don't think either of those two deserve to be in the top 10 whatsoever. But I don't think Dak Prescott belongs on this list either. I don't think Dak Prescott is that great. And I think it's a mistake if Jerry Jones ends up caving in and giving Dak Prescott a super long extension worth an arbitrary amount of money. If he's going to pay Dak Prescott in the stratosphere of a Joe Burrow or a Patrick Mahomes, a Jalen Hurts, even a Josh Allen, if Dak Prescott is making $40 million a year, Dallas, kiss your Super Bowl aspirations goodbye forever. You guys are going to have to start all over again, like you did with Romo at first, and then transitioning into Dak. If you give Dak $40 million a year, guess what? Wind the clock back because you're starting all over. You have talent on your team. You have Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, no running backs, and an old Zeke Elliott. I knew I couldn't make it without talking smack on the Cowboys, but if you guys pay Dak Prescott $40 million a year, turn that clock back and start all over because you guys are done. Your Super Bowl aspirations, open that window, throw them out. And that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate all of you making me a part of your day again. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. it's not working out, maybe